If you've ever felt trapped in a world that seems dark and out of your control, where hope feels like a distant dream, then this story is for you. What if the light you're searching for is closer than you think? Watch this to find out how far some will go to fight for it. The world had been dark for as long as anyone could remember. When Lila stepped out of the cramped concrete halls of their underground home, the cold air bit at her skin like 1,000 tiny needles. She shivered, but not from the chill. It was the constant reminder. The world outside had been swallowed by darkness long ago. Above, an ash cloud had blanketed the sun for generations, casting the earth into a state of permanent twilight. No one had seen daylight in living memory, and rumors of a world bathed in sunshine were considered myths, relics of a time long past. And yet, in this bleak, lightless existence, there was a flicker of hope. There had been whispers, faint at first, but growing stronger. People spoke of a light source, deep within the earth, beneath the surface, where none had ever ventured before. Some said it was a new power, a technology that could illuminate the world again. Others, more cynical, believed it was a trap, a cruel joke created by the powerful corporations that controlled the underground cities. But for Lila and her brother Ezra, it didn't matter. The dream of seeing daylight, of feeling the warmth of the sun on their skin, of watching shadows cast across the land, was enough to fuel their journey. For once, they weren't just surviving, they were living. It wasn't much, but it was everything. The trek to the rumored light source was treacherous. The path was a mix of abandoned tunnels and underground caverns that stretched for miles. Lila and Ezra moved carefully, navigating through pitch-black corridors, the weight of the darkness pressing down on them. Each step felt like they were moving deeper into the unknown, but the fire of hope in their hearts kept them going. For weeks, they ventured, their supplies dwindling, their resolve tested by the isolation and the overwhelming silence that echoed in the dark. They spoke little, but Ezra's quiet optimism was the thread that bound them together. "We're almost there," he'd say, even when Lila could see the exhaustion in his eyes. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they found it. A narrow shaft of light poured from a crack in the earth, spilling across the dusty floor like a beam of salvation. It was the first real light they had seen in years, faint but undeniable. Lila's heart raced as they crawled toward the source. They pulled themselves through the narrow opening, the sunlight spilling down on them like a shower. For the first time in their lives, Lila felt the warmth of the sun on her face. It was almost too much to bear. But as she looked around, she realized the world was not what she had imagined. The surface was not a thriving paradise, a new beginning. No, it was a wasteland. The once vibrant cities were now crumbling, their buildings twisted and decayed, consumed by time and neglect. The ground was cracked and barren, with only the faintest remnants of green in places where life had once flourished. The air was thick with dust, and the sky was a sickly orange, an eerie reflection of a sun that had been shut out by the ash. And in the midst of this desolation, there were people, survivors, like them, living in small, hidden communities, but they weren't what Lila expected. These people weren't hopeful or welcoming. They were hardened, scarred by years of struggle and survival. And they didn't share their light. They guarded it. "We've come to see the sun," Lila said, her voice trembling. The leader of the group, an older man with hollow eyes and a grim expression, shook his head. "The sun is gone, child," he said, his voice a rasp. "What's left is just a fading memory. What you're after is power, not light. and power doesn't come for free. Lila's heart sank as she realized the truth. The light they had found wasn't a gift. It was a commodity, a resource hoarded by those who controlled the surface, and they weren't about to share it with anyone. As they spent more time in the surface community, Lila and Ezra learned the shocking truth. The so-called light was an artificial construct, a last-ditch effort by the surviving elites to maintain control over the remnants of the world. The once great cities, now reduced to ghost towns, were slowly being consumed by the very darkness they had once tried to escape. The light wasn't a beacon of hope. It was a symbol of the power that still existed in the hands of a select few. The survivors lived in constant fear, not of the darkness, but of each other. The light was rationed, meted out in small, controlled doses, and only those who could prove their worth to the ruling elite were allowed to bask in its warmth. It was a twisted game of survival, one where only the strongest and most ruthless could thrive. But Lila refused to accept this reality. She had come all this way, endured all the hardship, for a chance to change the world. And now, standing on the precipice of that very change, she wasn't about to let it slip away. "You're wrong," Lila said, her voice steely with determination. "This light, this power, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to everyone. It's the only chance we have left to survive." The leader looked at her with a mixture of pity and amusement. "You don't understand, child. The darkness is coming for all of us. And when it does, it will take everything." Lila glanced around, seeing the despair in the eyes of the others, the weariness etched into their faces. But she also saw something else, a spark of hope. Maybe they weren't all lost. Maybe, just maybe, there was still time to change things. Lila's plan was simple: take the light and distribute it to everyone. No exceptions. It wasn't just a matter of survival, it was a matter of justice. And in the end, she knew that she couldn't let this opportunity slip away, even if it meant defying the very people she had once hoped would help them. With Ezra by her side, Lila led a small group of rebels to seize control of the light source. They fought tooth and nail, risking everything for the future they had imagined. But the fight wasn't just against the elites. It was against the darkness that had consumed their world. In the end, they succeeded. The light spread, not in small, controlled doses, but in a flood of brilliance that illuminated the darkened world. And though the struggle was far from over, Lila knew they had taken the first step toward reclaiming what had been lost. The darkness isn't just a lack of light. It's a state of mind. It's what happens when we allow fear, greed, and power to control us. But even in the darkest places, there is a spark of hope, a chance for change, and you have the power to make that change. Will you let the darkness consume you, or will you fight for the light?